Good morning. This is Lawrence Pierce-Durance, and today I'm going to take a little time to share with you some ideas about feasibility studies, in particular for capital campaigns for nonprofit organizations. I've done a series of videos, and you can see them under my name. I'll speak to it a little bit later. And if you've seen any of my others, you know I work primarily with small and medium-sized organizations. So for many years, I've heard a lot about feasibility studies. They're something you need to pay attention to, if for no other reason, is that they're expensive. You're hiring someone to come in and do interviews, and they may do anywhere from 25 to 100 interviews, and depending on the complexity of the planned campaign and problems, issues, etc., these studies could range anywhere in cost to you from $10,000 upwards of $50,000, $75,000. So at least know what you're getting into. Don't go into this blindly. And I would say, before I go any further, that the question is, do we always have to have a feasibility study before a campaign? And the answer to that is simply no. If you have an organization that has had successful campaigns, especially in the recent past, let's say the last 3-5 years, you have a solid staff, a solid case for support, etc., you may not need a feasibility study. Your board may be able to make an intelligent, informed decision to move forward on a campaign without having any outside expertise test your readiness. Now let's touch for a minute on what should be in a feasibility study report. This is my opinion. I think it's fairly common, but in my opinion, first and foremost, you are testing the feasibility of your case for support. Is your case on point for doing this campaign? Does it have a legitimate sense of urgency? Is it clear, concise, and compelling? So that's the most important thing that you want to get input on from a feasibility study. Second, you're testing the fundraising leadership for a campaign at your organization. What's your board look like? Who are they? Can they lead a campaign? Do you have appropriate staff, both in quality and quantity? Are there other key volunteer leaders? And it's at this point that I want to just take a little side note and say, it is one of the key reasons why you use an outsider to do a feasibility study. It's going to be hard, even if you're experienced inside the organization, to do a feasibility study, to get candid remarks about your senior staff. Perhaps on the board, people might be a bit anxious speaking up. But in confidential interviews with an outsider, they'll be more apt to speak up. So that's the second thing, fundraising leadership. Third, and this is what most organizations think is most important, they're going to see, are there sources of support, both in the kind of gifts you get and the level of gifts you get. So knowing that is going to help a board make an intelligent decision whether to go forward. I use a gift range chart, which shows the kind of gifts you would need for this kind of campaign, both in quantity of gifts and at levels. And I use that when I do, or when I see interviews being done, or I've done the interviews. We go over the gift range chart and we just candidly talk about, are there prospects that are capable, if properly motivated, at this level? So you want to test your level of support. Lastly, the fourth one is you're testing how's your organization seen in the community, PR-wise. And is the campaign that you're planning, is the timing good? What else is going on in the community? Are there a number of other campaigns? What's the economic climate, etc.? So those are the kind of things I think you should expect in terms of getting results back. And when you get results on these 4 areas, you will get findings, you should get conclusions from those findings, and recommendations. Now, let me turn to what I think are 2 different types of feasibility studies. Both can work. One's not right, one's not wrong. But they're 2 very different approaches to feasibility studies. The first one is what I call a feasibility study that's being conducted when the campaign planning is basically done. The organization is 90-95% sure they're going to go forward with the campaign. And what the feasibility study does, even though it's testing all the things I've talked about and maybe other things, is alerting your constituency that a campaign is coming, warming them up to it, cultivating them up to it. And unless there are radical or really unusual findings in the interviews, the campaign comes back and it's a goer, period. That you would know if your organization fits that kind of profile to have that kind of feasibility study. The second kind of feasibility study is done a bit more common, and that is you're testing truly the feasibility of doing a campaign. Your board is anxious. They haven't done one for a while, or especially at this magnitude. And before they jump off the deep end and go into a campaign which may or may not succeed, they'd like to get some professional outside input as to whether this has a good chance to be successful or not. And I think it's important that an organization decide which way where they lean. Are they really going to go with the campaign no matter what? Or is it going to be something that they're trying to test the feasibility of all the things we've talked about? I think that's all I really want to touch on. I wanted to touch on the two kinds of campaigns, what you should expect to be tested. If you would like to have any conversation in writing or by phone about feasibility studies, where your organization is, you can feel free to contact me. That contact, there's no charge to that. I care about the whole industry of nonprofits and nonprofit feasibility study. You can feel free to contact me, and you should do that through pdsolutionsfundraise.com. That's pdsolutionsfundraise.com. I hope that shows up on the bottom of the screen, but if not, that's where you can find out how to contact me. I wish you all the best. I wish you great success in your campaigns, and have a great day.